Welcome to Near and Rupar. We are going to say a very quick hello and goodbye to my co-host, Aaron Rupar. Aaron signed on for just a second to make sure that public notice readers got a notification, but he is actually moving today. He is leaving the crime-infested suburbs of Minneapolis and moving into the safe, beautiful big city. So, Aaron, good luck with your move.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Joe, for pinch hitting for me. And David, have a good show. I know you guys have a lot to talk about with Joe being in DC, where a lot of news is happening right now. So I'll let you guys take it from here and enjoy the show, everybody. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Aaron.
Well, like Aaron said, Joe Sudbay, frequent guest host on the Down Ballot podcast and also a guest before on Near and Rupar, is pinch hitting, stepping in for Aaron on today's show. Joe is a radio host on Sirius XM Progress. He hosts the fantastic show State of the States, which focuses all on state elections, especially down ballot candidates, folks running for jobs like state legislature, people running in special elections, the really important elections that we also cover intensively at the down ballot that never get the attention that they deserve. Before we get started, I also want to mention it's an exciting week at the down ballot. It's our first anniversary since launching as an independent site on Substack last August. It's been an incredible year. And thanks to so many of the folks on this who are watching this show right now, who have signed up as readers, who have particularly signed up as paid subscribers to support independent journalism. And I also want to say we are running a special sale this week to celebrate our anniversary, 25% off our, what I think is our already cheap price of $60 a year. That's just $45 a year if you go to the-downballot.com/anniversary. You can take advantage of that sale, not only to support the down ballot, but also to unlock access to special content and features available only to paid subscribers. But like Aaron said, we have a ton of news to cover. And Joe, we have to start with what's going on in DC because you live in DC. You have lived in DC for a long time. You have a feel for the city. And we just saw in a totally batshit insane, unhinged Trump press conference that what he is doing right now in DC, he is planning to bring his invasion, and I do emphasize that word, his invasion, to Chicago and New York City and other major cities. So, Joe, what the fuck has shit been like in DC these last couple of weeks? Can you describe it?
Yeah, it has been, first of all, DC, and I say it's a great city. It is a wonderful city. It's a vibrant city. It's great food. The food has gotten so much better over the past few decades. You know, I love this city and the people who live here. You know, we bitch about it, but everyone doesn't. Is there crime? Yes, but it's gone down, and people are committed to their communities, and it's so fucking enraging. What is happening and the lies that are being told. And I think, I just to lay it all, be very clear. And I think anyone paying attention today and listening here knows this has nothing to do with crime.
Of
It has
course.
nothing to do with crime. This is Donald Trump being an autocrat. Now, if you were paying attention last year, like I spent far too much time listening to and reading what Stephen Miller was saying. This was always the plan. He talked about taking red state National Guards into blue cities and taking control. They used immigrants as the pretext, but it is really about setting up an autocracy for all of us. And I have to tell you, the other day, David, just as full disclosure, I recently had surgery, so I'm kind of supposed to be careful when I'm out walking. I had a hip replacement and I'm walking my dog. So I'm kind of have to be extra careful because I have a great dog. But so we're walking and we walk out the other day and you can just tell everyone's a little bit on edge. And I saw a DC police vehicle drive down the street with with this vehicle behind it, an SUV pickup truck type thing, tinted windows, Georgia license plate. And I was like, this is fishy. So my spider sense went off. I kind of monitored them. They did a U-turn and they went down 19th Street, which is really close to me. And I see them get out and the police officer, and it was literally one of those guys in all the gear with the mask on.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
And there was another one across the street. So I walked by and I just like, you just can't help it. You're like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, I just looked at the guy and I said, are you fucking kidding me? It's
You
just
said that to him?
Yeah. You just like, it's spontaneous. You just don't even it's so visceral. It's just visceral. So, I have to be careful because I don't want to get Oliver excited because I can't fall. Like I'll be in big trouble if I fall. So I cross the street and I see this woman and she is letting one of the guys have it, just blasting him. And she says, "Can you believe we're seeing this in our city?" And she was going off. And then I ran into another woman who was saying the same thing. She said, "This is ridiculous." Anyone and I got to give the people of DC credit. And you've probably seen videos around. People are not having it. They're heckling these assholes, telling them to get out of our city. And what's been really disgusting is how many of them come back with some quippy thing like, "Oh, the liberals already ruined this city," or "We're
Oh,
going to make
right,
America
right,
great."
right.
You don't work for Donald Trump, you assholes. You took an oath to the Constitution. But my favorite was I called them the Three Stooges. Went to Union Station the other day. J.D. Vance, Stephen Miller, and Pete Hegseth, and they're walking through Union Station. And we take our joy where we can get it. We were in a very
Yes.
dire situation, and listening to a crowd calling J.D. Vance a couch fucker gave me joy. I'm not going to deny it.
Yes.
It was
Yes.
one of the greatest videos I've ever seen recently. And but I just want to say there's like this is happening. There was a hip hop concert last night at 14th and U. The citizens of DC are not taking this. And like yesterday, Donald Trump, he tells Todd Starnes, "I'm going to go on patrol," which anyone know Donald Trump, he barely gets his ass out of his golf cart unless he's cheating on a putt. He was not going to go on patrol. He brought some pizzas over to some National Guard troops. Okay. But his big announcement that last night was, "I know more about grass than anyone."
Grass?
Grass.
Like
Literally. No,
no.
grass, because he has golf courses. Like, you think I'm making this shit up. He went on a rant about grass, and he's going to do grass, and he's going to do fountains, and he's going to do things. You know what? This city would function fine without you. The biggest criminal in town right now is him, and the worst day of crime ever in this city was on January 6th, and he pardoned those assholes. And so what drives me crazy, David, and we talk about this often, is the way the media just kind of
Yes.
says, "Oh, Trump's doing it for crime." They know better. They know what this is. And I have a lot of respect for the citizens of the district who are just not taking this shit.
Your point about the media, I'm really glad you brought that up because I feel, look, that media criticism is something we have engaged in for a very long time. I don't just mean you and me. I mean, we as a movement, anyone who cares about democracy, the media has failed us for a long time. But the particular problem at issue here is that it is baked into the traditional media that they have to behave like every day is fucking Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
That there is no past, that there is no question about credibility or bad faith or bullshit lies that you have heard before. That means that you need to look more skeptically at the next thing a known liar says to you. It's like every day is a new day for them. And years of bad faith lies from Republicans just don't matter. I mean, I saw, Jesus Christ, Joe, God, we haven't even gotten to this John Bolton investigation yet. I think it was NBC sending a breaking news alert. JD Vance says that the investigation into John Bolton is not retribution. Oh, he says that, does he? Oh, wow. Oh, really? Unbelievable. Boy, I'm sure he means it. So, and that's what's happening with this crime bullshit, that they take this at face value. You see an autocrat doing autocrat things. It's pretext. Why don't these people understand that word?
It's so maddening. It's like it makes my head explode. They know exactly. He lies to their faces, and what's so galling to me is J.D. Vance saying that knows he's going to get those alerts going out, and that that they'll just immediately type it up and send it out. There's like going after John. Look, we do not like John Bolton. We have decades of not liking John Bolton. He's a neocon. He's one of the reasons we have the Iraq War. But what's happening to him? Like, this is one of the things that's amazing to me. Like, if some of these media people should be looking around, like, they're coming after John Bolton. They're coming after anyone who they think disagrees with them. I did see this is, the White House has stacked the White House briefing room with a bunch of psycho right-wing media types. And I saw Maggie Haberman from the New York Times actually during the when I think it was the event on Monday with the foreign leaders who came in to try and save the planet from him and Trump and Putin, and she said something like, "Oh, the White House press corps has really I'm paraphrasing, but it's kind of devolved. They're letting just these kind of questions come in." And I'm like, "You've been doing that shit for decades. You and your colleagues. I've always believed if you have access, you use access for the sake of progress, or you use access for the sake of breaking news. If you use access for the sake of access, get out. Get out because you are useless. And what do you get out of it? You just write down what they say. Trump says. I don't want to ever see a headline that says Trump says anything because it's going to be a goddamn lie."
100%. Look, what they get out of it, we know. They get book deals and star reporter treatment and probably high six or even seven figure salaries. Who even knows? I feel like we could go on a massive jag about the media, but I do want to focus on what's going on with this invasion of DC because Trump had a press conference today, and I'm really sorry that Aaron couldn't be here on today's show because he covers this stuff more closely than anyone else in America. And he really has just a cast iron constitution. And even Aaron was kind of shook by today's press conference. He tweeted that it was the most batshit. I don't remember the exact phrasing, but basically one of the most batshit ever for Trump. And that really is saying something from a guy who has watched all of these press conferences. And Trump, as we knew, had no plan on stopping with LA when he sent the National Guard, still there, by the way, in LA to allegedly deal with immigration. No intention of stopping with DC with this crime nonsense, because in this press conference today, he announced that he is preparing to do the exact same thing with major cities like New York and Chicago. Now, I'm from New York. Joe, I had to imagine that the reaction here would be exactly the same, maybe even more belligerent than in DC. Maybe we could have a competition between all our cities. Who can scream the loudest at these fuckers? But there is something that really particularly concerns me. And believe it or not, it was the statistics on the number of folks dining out and frequenting businesses in DC ever since the troops rolled into the district. And we saw that these numbers just dropped alarmingly overnight because people don't want to go out. And, maybe they're afraid. Maybe they just don't want the tension. Maybe they don't want to risk a confrontation. Maybe they're worried that they would get picked up off the street for no reason at all. These are all valid worries. And of course, Trump is saying that it's lies and that, the restaurants are busier than ever. Obviously, of course, if Trump says it's a lie, that means it's true. And the reason why this particularly disturbs me, Joe, is because if Trump's troop deployment is keeping folks at home right now, then what happens if he does it in November of 2026? Part of me wants to believe that folks in big cities would refuse to be intimidated and say, fuck this guy. And you bet like hell I'm going to vote to cast a vote against the bullshit that he's pulling. But, maybe not, or maybe some would and others would just want to stay home. Maybe he really can harm turnout by doing this around an election. Now, look, I'm comparing restaurants to voting. I would hope that people view voting as more important than dining out. But yeah, maybe this really could have an impact on turnout on election day if he's still trying it then.
Well, and I think when you combine that with his attack on mail-in voting this week and what he has demanded they do in Texas, he really does want these elections to be solely his. I will say that thing that about restaurants in DC, it just, first of all, it's August in DC,
Fair.
and but also I think what's happening with some restaurants, we, especially because I've been laid up, we've ordered out a lot. In my household, we've actually had a conversation. Do we want to order out? Not because we don't want to support restaurants, but one of the prime targets of the sweep has been motorbike drivers, mostly guys who drive around and deliver. We've seen so many of the stories. That's what I saw. The 12, there were eventually 12 DC and federal masked agents picking up a motorbike. And, I've seen conversations. People are having these kind of conversations. And, I don't want to get too specific because I don't want to
Of course.
anyone, but I'm having conversations with other people about their work. And should they show up and what to do and what kind of advice to give people. And, this every restaurant in this city, and Anthony Bourdain said this beautifully so many years ago, the restaurant industry relies on undocumented workers. So many industries rely on undocumented workers, healthcare industry, construction. You know who knows it better than anyone is Donald Trump, because he
Of
thrives
course.
on undocumented workers. So I feel like the restaurants are it's a kind of a double whammy. There's those of us who want to support them but don't want to endanger them, and then I'm sure a lot of their workers aren't showing up. So it's just a double whammy. And I'm sure the only person who's gleeful about this is Stephen Miller. And going back to that White House meeting, did you see the hat he had on? The hat that said Trump is right about everything. I think that's what it was. He looks like a fucking buffoon with the hat. It's gone beyond MAGA. It's a red and white hat. Like, you're the president of the United States. You're supposed to be the leader of the free world. You look like a goddamn buffoon, and you're just sitting there spewing lies and talking about invading your own cities. And I do consider it an invasion. I do consider this city being invaded, and the invasion has been abetted by the governors of Ohio, South Carolina, Louisiana, Mississippi, Tennessee. Do you have better things to do in your state? You're not.
Yeah, right.
Like, look what happened in Texas a couple of months ago. They had this special session, David, this month, and it was supposed to be about dealing with the remnants, the aftermath of that horrific flood. That state, local, and federal government let 135 people die. And but their dear leader has commanded that they send troops here. And the other thing I just want to add to this, which makes it a real invasion, they're arming them now. Like, Hegseth today made it official. They're going to arm them. We saw earlier this week that they were sending National Guard troops to the armory to get trained on pistols, not long guns, pistols. And
Right.
I actually was on SiriusXM Progress this week. I talked to Brandon Friedman. He's an old friend. He worked in the Obama administration, lives in Texas, served in Iraq and in Afghanistan. I asked him about this, and he's been just really a great spokesperson on this and really helping us understand it. He said, Joe, I was never trained on a pistol. The military, we weren't trained on pistols. We were trained on long guns. And Jake, who's one of our producers at SiriusXM, said, when he was serving, the pistols were always a signal of something really bad happening. And that's how they were viewed in dictatorial countries. So that's another piece of it, that they want a conflict in this city. They want a conflict. They want a conflagration. Donald Trump wants to crack down on all of us. All of us. And understand, even if you're MAGA, they don't care about you. He doesn't care about you. He's taking care of his fellow billionaires, and he cares about one other person in America, and that's Ghislaine Maxwell in Texas. He don't care about anyone else in Texas. But these are very dire times, and they told us it was going to happen, and we're watching it play out.
Well, I want to remind folks that if you are a paid subscriber, either of the Down Ballot or Public Notice, that you can jump into our Q&A. We are happy to take any and all questions. Joe, in regard to what you were noting about these troops coming in from other states, remind me of something really, really grim, which is that in the lead up to the Tiananmen massacre, the Chinese government deployed a lot of troops from the Chinese hinterlands. And these were troops who in many cases did not speak Mandarin, which is the version of Chinese spoken in the capital, and just didn't have any affinity for the people living in that city. They were from distant agricultural rural regions, and all of a sudden sent to this intimidating huge city for the first time, fish out of water, and basically unable to communicate in many cases with the student protesters. And that was an extremely deliberate choice by the Chinese government. That the only way of communicating that these troops had was with their guns. I'm not predicting, I'm not prophesying that we're going to see anything like that. That would be extremely irresponsible of me. I'm emphatically not doing that. But there is absolutely a reason why Trump is, and Stephen Miller in particular, are all too happy to bring in troops from other parts of the country that view themselves very often very oppositionally to cities like DC, and that only heightens the chances of something really terrible happening.
Yeah, and look, Trump talks in terms of violence all the time. He very much talks in terms of violence, and he talks and he has disdain for so many Americans. He hates us. He hates so many of us. And so I don't think we can be considered hyperbolic. I think we are being realistic. And I find the whole thing very worrisome, very disturbing. And I worry about so many. Look, my husband's parents are Mexican immigrants, and you know, he was going to work on Tuesday, and we were discussing whether or not he should bring his passport. And then after
Fuck.
we finished that conversation, I said, in the year 2025, in the capital of the United States of America, we're having a conversation about whether you should carry your passport because you're Latino. How fucked up is that? But that's where we are right now.
Was it Tom Homan the other week who said, or just openly admitted, that they're racially profiling now? That if you look a certain way, I mean, we knew that they were doing it, but now they have no problem admitting it, even though it's flagrantly unconstitutional.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, can I? What did you guys decide?
Uh, well, Carlos's office is not too far from here, so he's not bringing it right now, but we're monitoring the situation. Which is what you can do. I mean, but this is a conversation I've had with friends too. I was at physical therapy today, talking to my physical therapist. His significant other is from Colombia. He told me she brings her passport around with her now. And they do racially profile. We know they racially
Yeah,
profile. Like
of course.
there's actually audio, I think, from Florida Department of Law Enforcement. They're like, yeah, we're stopping cars with brown people in them. And
Right.
people in DC are saying that. They're like, if you're driving and you're driving while brown or black, there's a good chance you're going to be stopped. And they are doing roadblocks, probably unconstitutional roadblocks all over town.
Yeah.
It's freaking people out. And it's, first of all, David, it's bad enough that the economy is heading in a bad direction anyways. We keep seeing more conversation with people. I've had conversations this week on Sirius with so many people talking about the prices increasing. And then you start, undermining the economy of your largest cities, undermine the economy of LA, DC. Try it in New York, see what happens. Undermine the economy of New York, you undermine the economy of America. But the thing we got to remember is they don't care. They don't care. And I
Yeah.
think it goes to why Trump wants to steal the elections next year, too. He wants no accountability, and he wants to have no responsibility, no one holding him responsible for anything.
It's very bizarre that Trump, who obsesses over his poll numbers, doesn't care whether what he's doing is popular or not. Except I think that he still does. He just convinces himself that he, squints at polls in a certain way. Maybe he looks only at the crosstabs of just what Republicans feel, or if he sees a poll that he doesn't like, he just dismisses it as fake news. So as far as Trump's concerned, he is doing stuff that's popular. But I want to emphasize, I actually think it is really important that what he's doing is extremely unpopular on almost every front, not because it's going to get Trump to change his mind, but because it gets Americans to change their minds. And also, it stiffens the spines of Democratic office holders who, far too many of them are afraid to lead, scared of their own shadow. But if they see poll numbers showing that Trump is unpopular on immigration, on inflation, on crime, then they're more likely to stand up against him. Now, I understand, especially in light of what we've been saying, that a common rejoinder is, yeah, well, that's if we have elections next year. We're going to have elections, but Trump is going to do everything he can to try to fuck with them, to try to lower turnout, to try to rig the results in his favor. And we're seeing that in particular with the gerrymandering efforts that he's been demanding from Republican states all across the country. But I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Trump wouldn't be doing this if he wasn't afraid of losing. And Trump wouldn't be doing this if he thought he could just flip a switch and cancel the elections. He is doing this because he knows there will be elections and he knows that Republicans really might lose. And I think this is a good opportunity to pivot into all the latest redistricting news because right now, I was getting ready for the show, so I'm not sure if it's happened yet. The Texas State Senate is supposed to vote today on this new GOP gerrymander. The state House voted to approve it, of course, along party lines earlier in the week. This is the map that would make it much more difficult for 5 Democratic incumbents to win re-election. I would say that probably 2 of the seats are almost certainly gone for Democrats, in the 99.9% chance this map becomes law. But some of the Democrats might hang on in some of the other seats. But the important thing is, Joe, I have to say, I am genuinely surprised in a good way that California Democrats responded so aggressively to this, so aggressively, because just last year, when gerrymandering on the GOP side was still awful and terrible, Democrats in New York had a chance to respond with a counter gerrymander, and they washed their hands of it. They didn't, and it was enraging. And so just a year later, I mean, better late than never, we're seeing California Democrats engage in this response. And just to catch folks up, what California Democrats just voted on this week, they're going to have a special election in November. And California maps are drawn by the state's independent redistricting commission. So the legislature can't on its own just draw new maps to help Democrats to fight against the Texas gerrymanders, but they're putting an amendment on the ballot asking voters to temporarily adopt a new map that's more pro-democratic for the rest of the decade in response to what Texas is doing. And this is going to go for a vote in November. There's been some limited polling. It's a difficult issue to poll, but it does seem like Democrats have the advantage here. There's going to be a huge, expensive campaign, obviously, by Republicans to try to defeat it. But I'm just heartened that they're trying.
Yeah, I have to say, first of all, I think what Trump demanding what happened in Texas is a sign of weakness. I think he is weak. His polling numbers are weak. The economy is weak. Everything about him is weak. And he's coming from a position of weakness. This isn't someone, like you said, who thinks he's going to win. This is someone who's fucking afraid of losing. And David, the one thing Republicans did not expect is what is happening in California. And you can tell by the reaction, they are so freaked out. I saw a clip of all people, Greg Abbott ranting about it on Fox News. Mike Johnson is taking great umbrage. The White House is, J.D. Vance, they can't believe it. Because you know what? Democrats are finally saying, fuck you. We're not playing by the rules that you've said anymore. And that has been so, I think, inspiring for so many of us who wanted leadership. I don't love Gavin Newsom, but you know what? Go for it, Gavin Newsom and California Democrats. Governor Pritzker, Governor Hochul, who signed that law last year, which, by the way, cut a nice line for a certain minority leader to make sure he could stay in his district, but we won't dive into that. But she's actually talking about things. And I have to say, I think it's the kick in the ass that we all need, that Democratic leaders needed. And I need them when they come back next week, the week after next, after Labor Day. I need Democrats on Capitol Hill to be in a fighting mood as they head into the budget fight. I need them to take the lessons that they're seeing in California and realize we are not playing the same game. They are not your friends on the other side of the aisle. They want to destroy the country. They want to destroy the people that you say you represent and love. They want to destroy our democracy. Fight the way they're fighting in California. And again, Republicans do not expect it. And that's what has been so great about this.
In any normal world, Joe, hearing Texas Republicans of all people complain about California gerrymandering, a normal media would be like, are you fucking kidding me? Seriously? But it just proves that Republicans only believe that only Republicans can legitimately govern. That it's that anything that Democrats do, any election that Democrats win, is de facto illegitimate. They've believed this for quite some time. I started following politics as a teenager back in the 90s, and it became very clear that they did not view Bill Clinton as legitimate. And it's continued ever since then, and just getting worse and worse as they grow more and more fascistic. But there's something. So Newsom, man, I mean, it's wild. He started this year as one of my least favorite Democrats because he was basically wanted to throw trans folks under the bus, and then he started this stupid podcast in interviewing fuckholes like Steve Bannon. And in the last few months, he's transformed into good Gavin, and his poll numbers have shot back up. And it's like, it can be fun to fight back. It's energizing to fight back. And boy, Gavin Newsom, wouldn't you rather be like receiving all this praise and adulation instead of getting crapped on all the time? Kathy Hochul, same thing. I mean, she's someone who I really did not have a lot of respect for. And, some days she still says stupid shit, but she's also showing a lot more spine these days. And I got to say, I'm going to hand it to Newsom on these tweets. If you haven't seen these tweets, his press account for the last several weeks, I don't know exactly how long it's been going on, has been mocking Trump so brutally simply by aping his insane style of tweeting. And at first I thought, oh God, this joke is so played out. But very quickly I realized that he's not making a joke. He is trying to point out the absurdity that the media accepts Donald Trump's insane tweets as somehow normal. And it's working because you have folks on Fox News saying, "Oh, wow, it's so undignified that Gavin Newsom is tweeting this way." No shit. That's the whole point. It's incredibly undignified, and Trump has been doing this for years and years and years, and somehow it's gotten accepted as normal or acceptable or not worthy of comment. And by posting these completely bonkers tweets, Gavin Newsom is finally re-elevating this issue. And I'm so curious to know, like, who in his team decided to do this, and they've stuck with it. Because you've had some, not just Fox News, but also some stupid, hand wringy, pearl clutchy Dems saying, "Oh, this is unbecoming." God, get fucked. This is working.
Yeah, I have to say, Fox News dedicated a whole night to it the other night. Hannity, all of them, they can't believe it. They can't believe it. And at his press conference last Friday, when the White House sent some stormtroopers outside from CBP to harass him, and
Right.
it was gross. But there's some reporter who actually asked him, asked him about it, and whether it was unbecoming, and he's like, "Are you asking Trump about that?" I mean, literally, because it's the greatest answer. Because some of all these reporters are like, "Oh, what's he doing? What's he doing? This is gross. This is pathetic." Well, you've kind of normalized it with Trump. What it's also showing how crazy Trump's messaging is, but how much the media has accepted it and normalized it. And I give him a lot of credit for it, his team doing it. Thank you. And again, like, I feel the same way about him. I mean, I don't love the guy, but you know what? The enemy of my enemy is my friend right now.
Yep.
And we need everyone on our team that we can get, and we can sort things out later. But right now, we are fighting for democracy, and he's really been kicking some ass. I give Governor Hochul a lot of credit, like you did, Governor Pritzker. Mayor Wu in Boston, she's taking notes.
She's been kicking ass.
Yeah, they're threatening. Someone from the DHS was on Fox saying, at DHS and ICE, we uphold, we took an oath to uphold the Constitution. She sent a picture. She said, "I took an oath too on the Bible of the Revolution." You don't fuck with Boston.
No.
You don't fuck with Boston. And even Governor Ferguson out in Washington, who's not been, very aggressive, gave a very good speech the other day. And you're seeing a lot of these local. And again, I feel like, David, so much of it is coming from electeds who aren't in D.C. and Democratic leadership.
Yep.
And I really appreciate that.
So speaking of electeds in D.C., in a couple of weeks, I guess, Congress is going to be back in session finally. And some chickens are going to be coming home to roost, because let's not forget that Mike Johnson adjourned the House early because Democrats started sinking their teeth into the Epstein files. And that shit hasn't gone away. And he all he did was procrastinate and buy himself a little bit of time, because this thing is going to be coming back with a vengeance. And I hope Democrats remember just how much they were wrong-footing Republicans by harping on this stuff. And you go home over the summer, do your town halls, prepare for your campaigns for re-election. Maybe you're not talking about Epstein that much, but be prepared to switch gears, and get right on this. And the thing that I have to say has also impressed me about congressional Democrats is that you usually, on issues like this, God, so many of them are just, Americans don't care about the Epstein files; they care about the price of eggs. And this time, you've seen very few congressional Democrats try to pull that nonsense. You could talk about both. Talk about both. And it's not undignified. You are hurting Republicans and keeping Republicans from passing legislation. Anytime Congress is out of session right now is good news. And you're forcing them to answer uncomfortable questions. And you're also driving a wedge into the Republican Party because the GOP, they have been flogging the Epstein files for God knows how long. And they're true believers like Thomas Massey. They really want to see them, and they know their base wants to see them too. And so this sets Republicans against one another, and that's always good.
Always good. And, first, and also Trump and team have kept the Epstein files alive. He sent his personal lawyer, who's number 2 at DOJ, to cut a deal with Ghislaine Maxwell, who's now in, some minimum security club fed. She's a monster. She sexually trafficked children. And this is, I know Republicans they love to do the anti-trans stuff. Don't talk about protecting kids and lying about kids when you're protecting pedophiles. There was actually a 60 Minutes, Australia did a piece this past weekend, and it's called "The President and the Pedophile." And Maria Farmer spoke in it, and the women who have been wronged by Donald Trump and Epstein, who have been ignored by law enforcement, they didn't talk to them before they went and talked to Ghislaine. They're going to be on Capitol Hill. They're going to talk. And I will say one thing, rest in peace, Jerry Connolly, but Robert Garcia, as the ranking Democrat on the House Oversight Committee, is going to be ruthless about this. He said this week, Comer, they did an interview with a deposition with Barr, and Comer came out and said, no, it's fine. And Robert Garcia said, release the whole thing because that's not what happened. And they were supposed to have the Epstein files delivered to the House Oversight Committee on Tuesday. Now they're saying we're going to be able to provide some on this day and maybe on this day. And, it's complicated. And he's like, no, yeah. Pam Bondi told us in February, she had them on our desk. Bring them up here right now. So I think it really helps to have someone in a position like that who is going to be ruthless and understands the value and keeps the Democrats motivated. And so shout out to Robert Garcia for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Garcia, if you're not familiar with him, he's one of these younger generation of Democrats. He's only been in Congress for a few terms. And for folks who came up in politics during the Trump era, many just have a different and better understanding of what the stakes are. Chuck Schumer always wants it to be 1998 again. Where, he maybe occasionally fights a bit with Newt Gingrich, but ultimately, he appropriates a few $1 trillion and, everyone's happy and he gets money for his district or his state. And we're not in that universe anymore. And someone like Garcia understands that. And I'm also actually going to shout out Garcia for another completely different reason, Joe, which is that this new map that California Democrats have proposed in order to target these Republican seats and also to protect vulnerable Democratic incumbents, a bunch of Democrats in blue districts would give up a bunch of safe turf to share those voters with these other districts. So their districts get redder to make other districts bluer. And Garcia's district in particular is one that would be giving up a lot of blue turf. And, look, he'll be fine. Certainly in 2026, he still won't have a problem winning re-election. But incumbents can often, in things like redistricting, can often be very jealously guard their turf and not want to give it up, not want to, jeopardize their relationships or risk their chances at re-election. So, yeah, props to Garcia, Jared Huffman, Doris Matsui, a whole number of California Democrats have said, you know what, I'm going to be a team player. Carve up my district. Take what you need.
I love it. I have a lot of respect for them. And we're seeing some news from Texas that Lloyd Doggett, long-term congressman, may not run again if the maps stay in place. He's I think he's like 78. But also, coincidentally, David, sitting on $6.2 million in his in his congressional account. I did look that up yesterday. So, I think that a lot of that's important. And the other thing that's going to happen when we get back, you mentioned Chuck Schumer, there's going to be negotiations on the budget. And now I think one of the first things they should negotiate is defunding the National Guard coming to cities around the country and defund that $170 billion they're going to spend on ICE and concentration camps. Fight on that. Make a fight on it. It's one of Trump's worst issues now. And I did see some conversation. Chris Murphy said we got to fight, and Brian Schatz, who wants to be the number two, said something along the lines of, "Well, we think our Republican colleagues want to negotiate. Your Republican colleagues aren't going to negotiate. The Senate Majority Leader is Donald Trump. Get that through your thick heads and learn to fight like you're seeing Democrats around the country fight. That's my plea to Senate Democrats. I know sometimes it falls on deaf ears, but Jesus Christ, if they don't hold out, I don't care if they shut down the government. There's this whole line. Well, the party that shuts down the government loses. 2013, Ted Cruz shut down the government. It was I actually know it because it was my wedding weekend, and a lot of our company
Really?
couldn't go to the museums around town. But that was 2020. What happened in 2014?
Yeah, yeah.
Republicans took the Senate. Republicans, everyone, like there's mindset, this conventional wisdom that sets up on Capitol Hill that, well, this happened in this 1 year, so it really means everything. No, it's a whole new ballgame. Be aggressive, please, please, please.
Yeah, and I also think that just it's different when the Republicans hold majorities in both chambers of Congress, and the White House. Democrats simply need to say, "You have majorities.
Do it.
You pass something. Why do they need Democratic votes? I mean, like, will the filibuster this, that, the other thing? No, they can absolutely cobble together a majority. And if they need Democratic votes, then do exactly what Democrats want, then pass a Democratic budget. Murphy is completely right. Chris Murphy, senator from Connecticut, is completely right. And Brian Schatz, I have to say, has really disappointed me. Senator from Hawaii. He gave a lot of cover to the budget deal earlier this year. And he is a very likely candidate to succeed Chuck Schumer someday. And it's been disappointing to see how accommodationist he is, and wants to be. And let's not forget that you can make a deal with congressional Republicans, and Trump and Doge will just cut whatever they want or reappropriate money however they want. And the Supreme Court has been helping them get away with murder. Yeah, it's like, who do you think, like you said, Joe, who do you think you're negotiating with here? It's a deal written on water.
Well, of course they can negotiate with the Senate chair of the Appropriations Committee, because I read in the main papers in December how important and powerful she was. This is, of course, Susan Collins, who nothing gets me more than talking about Susan Collins. But she recently, I saw a quote from her when she said, "I'm surprised that Russ, he's been around. I'm surprised that he's doing this. He knows better." Like, what fucking planet are you living on? And I'm so sick of media treating her like she's any sort of credible voice, but they do. They all run to her to get the moderate voice, which isn't a moderate voice. She really needs to lose next year. Please, God, let her lose.
So I'm so glad you brought up Susan Collins, because I wanted to end on a more positive note. And that gives us a great opportunity, because a new candidate jumped into the race against Collins this past week, Graham Plattner. And I have rarely seen a candidate, especially a first-time candidate, just take the political world by storm with a campaign launch. He is a military veteran, served multiple tours of duty in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's also an oyster farmer, and he doesn't look like your typical politician. He speaks with this very gruff voice. He's grizzled. He's got a beard, and his launch video, which is really terrific, he's mostly narrating it from his boat in the water. And he sounds like a normal human being. He also calls out Susan Collins directly. He says the difference between Susan Collins and Ted Cruz is that at least Ted Cruz is honest when he wants to screw us over. Look, who knows? These first-time candidates, you never know if they're going to be successful when they're actually on the campaign trail. Creating a launch video it's a controlled environment. That's a lot easier to do than running a campaign for 15 months. But it was great to see people get so excited. And I got to say, whoever's managing his campaign team, it was a masterful rollout.
Yeah.
But Joe, being a Maine native, and obviously you spend a lot of time there still. What's your take on that?
Yeah, so I had heard from my friend Marie, who's a total hardcore badass activist. She told me about him a couple weeks ago. She said, "I think you're going to be impressed with this guy. He's an oyster farmer." And so I saw the video and I loved it. I mean, And I've been thinking back about Susan Collins' history. She's really been a lucky politician. She ran 96. She ran against Joe Brennan, who never should have run. Had been the governor. He lost campaigns. 2002, 2014 were very bad years for Democrats. 2008 and 2020, she ran against politicians. She's never run against a non-politician, and she won't know what to do against a non-politician. She knows the game. Now, the one thing that's really important is he's got to run a main campaign, and he's a Mainer. Like I watch him, and I was
He
like, oh
feels
yeah,
so Maine. He feels
oh I
so
know.
Maine to me.
I know people like him, like he's mean. And that resonates with people. It feels like a real guy. And I feel like, Jared Golden is a real Mainer, but I feel like Jared's just a phony. When you see Jared out on a boat, he looks like he's acting. And I had high hopes for Jared Golden back in 2018. The New York Times reminded us that he was going to run as a left-wing populist and supported Medicare for all, got to DC and became a centrist. I really worry about those kind of things happening. But for right now, it was such the kind of kick in the ass we all needed to see someone being fearless. He dropped an F-bomb in his video because you know
Yeah.
what? He's out of the water. He drops a lot of F-bombs.
Yeah, no question.
So my friend Marie, I take her word on it. But then I saw a conversation that someone wrote on Blue Sky, said, my wife worked with him. He was a bartender. He's the real deal. He's the real deal. Like, this is a good guy. And you never would have thought he'd run for elected office. But once they thought about it, they're like, oh my God, he's exactly the kind of guy you want to run for elected office. So let's see how it plays out. There's a primary. There's another guy in, I think his name's Jordan Wood.
Yeah.
Janet Mills might get in. Janet's been the governor. She's like 77, 78. I just kind of feel like if you're going to run against Susan Collins, you need a lot of energy. And you need a campaign that has a Mainer talking to Mainers. And that's one thing I just don't want, like the DS or somebody to get involved and start giving him talking points. I think he's going to be resistant to that.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and keeps it real. I mean, authenticity, David, is like Zoran Mandami is
Yeah.
authentic, And why can't we learn from these candidates who are authentic and realize they know how to talk to people? What a concept.
Well, it's so interesting you mentioned Mamdani. We should wrap up in a minute, Joe. But Graham Plattner's message was so similar to Zoran Mamdani's, despite being a totally different guy running in a totally different state, totally different background. It's about affordability. That was his central focus, just like Mamdani. This is a message that can work in any district, in any state, in any race. You just have to sound believable. You just have to sound like you understand the concerns that Americans have, that maybe you've experienced them too, that you're not some elite. And a certain type of non-politician or outsider is capable of conveying that much better than your typical, factory produced, lab grown politician. But there's one last thing I want to say, Joe, because I thought it was super funny. So we mentioned that he's an oyster farmer. There was an article that after his campaign launched. I was like, okay, but how are the oysters? And I have to admit, Joe, I keep kosher. I've never had an oyster in my life, but there were like all these chefs in Maine who are like, oh man, he sells some of the best oysters in Maine. They're more expensive than usual, but if I can get my hands on them, then I want them. So I love the fact that he's not a bullshit artist, that he actually sells quality product that people love.
Yeah, I look. I love seafood. I'll eat steamers. I'll eat lobster. I'm just not into oysters, but I love that story because it's such a main story, and
Totally,
it
totally.
shows it's not a bullshit. And I want to say one other thing just quickly. So there are special elections on Tuesday around the
Yes.
country. Caitlin Dray in Senate District 1 in Iowa, Chris Schultz, Assembly District 63 in California, Riverside County, Deborah Shigley, she's running North Fulton, Georgia Senate District 21. They're my show this weekend on SiriusXM Progress. I talked to all of them over the last couple of days, and they've all been campaigning hard, knocking doors, which is why I love talking to state leg candidates. I said, what are you hearing on the doors? The first word, all three said, from Sioux City to Riverside County to North Fulton County, affordability. That's what people in this country are talking about.
Well, we should keep talking about that plenty more. Joe, thank you so much for subbing in for Aaron this week. It is always a pleasure. Joe Sudbay, host of State of the States on Sirius XM Progress. Joe, what is the channel number and when does the show air?
Channel 127, and the first airing on the weekend will be at 9 a.m. Eastern tomorrow. I'm also hosting for Dino Badala this week, and I hosted for Mike a couple weeks ago. You joined me. I also want to say, I think I was one of the first subscribers to the Down Ballot. I think because I
Yes.
knew about it in advance. I love it. If you haven't subscribed and you care about American politics, you are missing out. Every morning it comes. It is an invaluable resource. And I've told you this, David. It helps me whether I'm hosting for any of the guest hosts, when I'm guest hosting, or whether I'm doing State of the States. You and your colleagues help me understand American politics and tell the story from my perch at SiriusXM Progress. So thank you.
Well, Joe, thank you for that extremely kind endorsement. Again, it's our first anniversary, so we're celebrating. Take 25% off. Go to the-downballot.com/anniversary and support us for $45 a year. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. I know that our schedule has moved around a little bit. Next week, we are taking off because it's the Friday before Labor Day weekend. So we're going to enjoy a little bit of a long weekend. And I hope that all of you get to take some time off and enjoy yourselves and hopefully have good weather. We will be back the Friday after Labor Day at our regular time of 2 p.m. Eastern. We had almost 800 people joining us today, so thank you again, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.